All right, welcome everyone. Nice to see you all. A lot of familiar faces and a few new ones. Before we move on to the lesson portion of today, I just want to talk a little bit about the theme for this Feldenkrais series. So, if you want to prepare your space in any way, now would be a great time to do that. We will be on the floor, but you don't have to get down onto the floor just quite yet if you don't want to. We will be on our side and on our back for the lesson. So you may want to have a folded towel, a small pillow, nothing really big and squishy for your head, but just something small for side lying. All right. Okay, welcome again, especially for those of you that are new to this method. I'm going to talk a little bit about how we'll approach the actual class once we start the lesson in a moment. But first, I want to talk about this theme of this series. I'm calling this series From Rest to Action. And for those of you that are newer to Feldenkrais, every lesson or class is constructed as a series of movements that are interspersed with rest. So each movement instruction you can think of as a component of a larger movement. As the lesson progresses, these smaller components will start to make more sense together. It's really similar to a recipe. You have many ingredients, but each ingredient on its own might not taste very well. Like it might be boring or bland on its own, or it might be a really intense flavor ingredient on its own. But then once everything's put together, it fits nicely. There's some kind of harmony. And so we can think of the component parts of a lesson that once they're all put together, they will create an action that includes the whole of you. And in between each of these component parts, we rest. So the resting in between the movements is something that's really signature to Feldenkrais lessons. The resting allows for a more organic way of learning. So you can consider the way that a baby moves through its environment while it's learning a new skill. Say, it's wanting to roll onto its belly, or it wants to move from its belly onto hands and knees. It's going to try a bunch of different movements many times, and each movement will probably be a little bit different. It'll reach at a slightly different angle. It will push into the floor a little bit differently. And at some point, the baby will get tired. And then what does the baby do? It just sort of, okay, I'm going to give up right now. Maybe it's frustrated. Maybe it's just tired. And then it pauses. It rests. The baby rests. And then when the baby feels like it has some energy again, or it's curious again, or maybe a new idea came, it begins again. So there's this organic settling of the system until the system's ready to try again or until it's curious. And when we're resting in a Feldenkrais lesson, it's usually not because the movements themselves have been so physically demanding. Like you haven't just sprinted 400 meters and then you need to rest. We rest in order for our nervous system to have time to integrate, to consolidate what we're doing. And sometimes we're even resting our attention, because I'm going to ask you to pay attention to a lot of details. And for a lot of us, our attention spans are getting smaller and smaller. And so it can be really helpful to just have a little break from that. Sometimes during the rest, beginners, people that are new to Feldenkrais, think maybe they need to be doing something in particular during the rest. I just ask you, whenever you go to rest, like say you want to lie down, maybe you really need a nap, like a 10-minute nap. Do you try really hard to rest? Do you want to rest better or faster or harder? Probably not, right? Rest is this ability for us to slow down, to see if we can stop any kind of muscular contractions that aren't necessary. See if we can slow down our brain, our thinking. And it's not that we can actually switch off all thinking or switch off all muscular tone, but in this series, we will listen to the changes in the quality of your restfulness. So I think that's enough to say about that. If you are able to come up to stand, we're just going to start the lesson with a little walk. If you're on the floor and that was a feat to get down to the floor and you want to stay on the floor, then just skip this part. It will just be a moment. So for those of you that want to stand, just take a moment. And just walk a little bit about your space. You might have to turn back and forth if you're in a smaller room. And walking without trying to prove anything, just feeling the quality of your walk here at the beginning of the lesson. Noticing the weight of your arms, the sense of your chest, any kind of movement you feel across the chest, movement of your sternum, of your upper back. The general way that you organize walking. Great. And then when you're ready, find the space where you're planning to come and lie on the floor. And it's best for this lesson that we don't have too much friction underneath us. So if you're using a yoga mat, that's okay, but just know that there may be moments where the friction makes things a little bit harder, at which point you could move that aside or you could put a blanket over the yoga mat. You can play with that as you need to. So please come to lie on your back. So the movement components of this lesson may be really familiar to some of you, but the perspective of the lesson will have an emphasis on sensing in detail the difference between rest and action. And so to begin that, I'd like you to just notice some details of your current rest. As you might know, Dr. Feldenkrais was a scientist, and so he was a great believer in what you could think of as the scientific method. And in awareness through movement, we notice how we feel before and after a lesson, the pre and the post feeling of ourselves. So simply notice, acknowledge the change of position. When you lie on your back, you have so much more of the surface of your body in contact with the surface of the floor compared to what you do in standing. Right? When you're standing, the base of support is so small, it's just your feet. But now that you have the whole back of you, that provides your nervous system with a sense of stability that it just simply doesn't have when you're standing. And what happens when we lie down like this, our brains decrease their reliance on the information that's related to the external world, and they start to increase their reliance on internal perceptions. So you can close your eyes to start to move your attention inward and feel the weight of your right leg on the floor. And could you track the different relationships, the different contacts that you feel behind your right heel, which is different than behind your calf or different from behind your knee? And go all the way up to the right buttocks, to the right side of your pelvis, the right side of your lower back. Maybe some of you sense the lower back touching the floor, or maybe it's clearly lifted. And notice all the way up the right ribs to the right shoulder blade, the right arm, the right side of your neck. even the right side of your face. So among the whole length of your right side, there are these different relationships with the floor. And for today, I'd like you to also notice another difference among the feelings just on the right side. Can you think of a difference in the quality of restfulness? For example, does the feeling behind the calf muscle match the feeling behind the buttocks muscle? Or do they seem to have a different tone or energy? We could compare in terms of exertion or work in the tissues. And if it feels like there's a tension or an effort in one area that's different from another, a kind of buzzing in one area versus a softness in another. So you might feel that there's an area that is completely content, very simple, very calm. It's not demanding anything, it's not challenged. Meaning some parts on the right side of you have an easier time resting, and other parts are noticeably less able to settle into this rest. And then do this kind of methodical scan on the left side. Feel the left heel. You can start with these different contacts, the idea of different relationships to the floor, the left calf, the space behind the left knee, the left hip, and all the way up, feeling the lower back, if it's touching the floor or not. The back ribs on the left side, your left scapula, your left arm, the left side of your neck, the left side of your face. And as we start to look at the second side, of course, maybe right away there's a difference in the left side compared to the right side that occurs. And that's really good to acknowledge. You might notice really big differences in relationship to the floor between the left and the right, or maybe something more subtle. And then slowly, with curiosity, just sweep your attention up and down just the left side a few more times and turn to this question of restfulness. When we're lying down like this, we actually need very little muscular effort, but that doesn't mean that some of your tissues are still engaged. Maybe you feel some tissues that are having a hard time relaxing, or other sides that are just so pleasantly peaceful. And slowly start to roll your head a little bit one way and the other. Just a greater chance for you to feel how much effort you actually need or don't need to roll the head. And how far through yourself can you sense this turning of the head? Is it just your neck, or does this movement shift something in your chest or a little farther down your spine? Is the rolling of the head a little bit more pleasant on one side than the other? Are you more inclined to roll one way? Great. And then just bring your head back to the middle and think to yourself, from here, from lying on your back, what direction, what side could you roll to more easily? And if you just spontaneously think of rolling to your side, you might have a known preference. Imagine that first. Imagine yourself moving into action to roll to one side. And then begin just the very first movements. Take a moment and move just a little bit in that direction to roll to whichever side you chose. And then you just return back to the middle. It's a very small amount. It's the intention to start to move in that direction. Just the very beginning of the movement. And notice, where does the movement begin for you? Is it a tone that you feel somewhere in your torso? Right? And when I say movement, where does the movement begin for you? That may actually just be a feeling where you sense a change in tone. You go from this place of what feels like complete rest or as restful as you can be to that shift of tone. And if you start to make that movement just a little bit bigger, right? We have our limbs, we have our head, these parts of us that have some weight to them. How would you start to mobilize them? Just the beginning. Do you slide something along the floor? Do you lift it up? Great. Okay. And then just return back to your back and continue listening to yourself. Bend your knees and stand your feet. Notice the changes in the quality of the contact with the ground. And then really thinking here before you act, give yourself a moment of motor planning. In a moment, you're going to press the floor equally and simultaneously with the soles of both feet. And you'll do that in some way so that your pelvis shifts. Now, how does your pelvis shift? You'll find that out. So imagine this act of pressing the floor equally with the feet. And you can even think to yourself, are you in a position where your legs are located in a good place? They're prepared? Do you like the organization of your feet? And then a few times act on this. Press your feet a little bit into the floor. If that's available to you, equally pressing the 2 feet, slow and smooth. And as you do that, start to float your pelvis into the air as far as is completely easy, well within your range of comfort. You're not lifting as far as maybe what satisfies your urge to lift as high as you can or tells you that you're doing something significant in the world. We're working on a much smaller level. So just go as easy as you can, where you can say, oh, I like the way that feels, and I actually want to do it again. We're just sensing how it is to float the pelvis a little bit upward, and it doesn't even need to leave the floor. You can feel how you engage the two soles of the feet into the floor, and you start to feel that preparation for action. Great. And then just let that rest. That will be another little reference movement for us. Now, could you think to yourself, which side would be nicer to lie on? Which side would you lie on if you wanted to be really comfortable? So you are going to choose that side. And it might be the same side that you were choosing when you were thinking of rolling to your side a moment ago. But so roll to that side and have your knees bent. And you can draw your knees up so they're about at hip height. Your legs are stacked. You can put whatever you'd like underneath your head. You could put your bottom arm underneath your head. You could get a little support, a folded towel, folded blanket. Some of you may feel like you don't need anything underneath there, but really find a resting place here on the side. And from this resting place, we'll start to fade into action. Now, the top hand, the ceiling side arm, that hand, you could place that on the floor somewhere in front of your chest. And here, can you start to think of your sternum, your breastbone? Sense where it is and begin to move your sternum a little bit backwards. It's kind of an odd request. See what you can make of it. So you start to move your sternum a little bit backwards, and then you return to what is your home resting position on your side. And repeat that a few times, seeing if you can reduce your effort. And so very gently repeating that movement, not quickly. You're thinking of almost like you're moving your sternum back deeper into the body, like your sternum wants to move back towards your spine. And keep exploring that slowly so that you can attend to and sense the details. Notice how there has to be some kind of availability or malleability in the chest tissues for your sternum to move at all. That's right. It's as though you're moving your sternum back away from your hand that's on the floor. Good. And then pause for a moment. And now, instead of thinking of your sternum, what if you intend to look downward a little bit towards your knees? Could you look downward to look towards your knees and see what happens? Certainly, your eyes can move. They might move more than they were before, but what happens through the rest of yourself? And does your sternum actually participate? Do you have a feeling of that, the connection of these two movements, of your sternum moving a little backward and looking down towards your knees? Great. And then just take a moment to pause, just a little mini rest here on your side. Just gives you the opportunity to feel again where, if you're interfering with yourself, noticing things that you might not intend to be engaging. And now, from this restful sideline position, could you think to yourself, what would I do to draw my knees a little bit closer to my head? And I'm going to take one option away, which is I'd like you to not lift your legs from the floor. So you're working to not break your contact with the floor, which means you will be working with a little friction. So you think of somehow pulling your knees a little closer to your chest, and whether or not you actually produce a movement that someone in the room could see doesn't matter. It truly doesn't matter for our learning today. Instead, you're feeling yourself start to mobilize as if your knees are coming closer to you. And you can mobilize as strongly as you truly enjoy or as quietly. And then you let that go. You let them come back to where they came from. In other words, you let go of any of the efforts. And then you try it again. So there's both the sense of drawing them up and the sense of that letting go feeling. And so now that you know the movement and you can just continue exploring this movement, right? You've interpreted the directions. See if you can spare some attention for the whole length of your body. And see, when you pull your knees a little bit closer towards the head, does the chest know that you're thinking of pulling the legs a little closer? Do your shoulders know? And does your spine know? And if anything is getting really tired, can you think of working less hard in that region and inviting more of you into the movement? Good. And begin to let all of that go. Feel yourself fade from action to rest. Take a moment to watch yourself do nothing but breathe here on your side. And if we could call that pulling your knees a little towards your chest, kind of up your mat towards you, could you begin to think of a movement that would send your legs down the floor or away from your head and backward a little bit? Really imagine it before doing it. The knees will stay in their bent position, and you can think of the soles of your feet like they would push a little bit backward behind you so that it creates an unfolding at the hips, a little bit of a lengthening in the front of the hips. And again, you might run into some friction. So you can go smaller. You might fail to actually move the legs, and that's okay. You're really studying the organization of all the things that happen even before your legs would begin to slide backwards. Great. And notice your breathing as you do this. As you think of moving the legs a little bit backward, could you inhale? Could you sense a little bit of expansion in the front? A sense that the spine is moving towards a slight arch in some kind of harmony with the legs going backward. Great. And then just fade out of that movement and slowly come to roll onto your back. Take a rest on your back. And just watch the body unfold from being on your side. Listen to your breath for a few moments. And could you begin and roll back to this same side that you were just on? Find the home place of lying on your side. And now what we were just doing with both legs, I'd like you to think of doing it just with your top leg of the leg that's closer to the ceiling. So the top leg, bent as it is, will slide a little bit backwards. The inner knee can slide along the inside border of the calf of the floor leg. The inner edge of your top foot might even come to the floor and slide a little bit back behind you. So you're just unfolding the top hip a little bit, and then you're bringing it back to where it was resting on the bottom leg. And as you unfold that top hip a little bit and bring the top leg backward, could you link that to an inhalation? Seeing if you can distribute the movement of this one leg going backward into the length of your whole torso. Could you allow for some kind of skeletal reverberation up your back, even into your neck and your shoulders? Like maybe your head even knows that you're pushing your foot a little bit backward into the world. That's right. And the knee stays comfortably bent as it is, so you're not opening and closing the knee. Good. And now as your top leg, as the top knee comes towards the bottom knee, could you keep moving that knee towards your chest? So you're going to inhale and swing that top leg a little backward, and you'll exhale and bring that top leg a little towards your head or towards your chest. And continually sensing how you distribute this movement through the length of your whole torso. Great. And then just let that top leg rest on the bottom leg and pause for a moment here on your side. So fade out of that movement exploration, rest on your side in the most comfortable way, allow whatever adjustments you need to, almost like you're turning this Feldenkrais lesson into a tiny preparation for a nap. What would you give up? What efforts would you give up for a moment? Great. Now, your ceiling side arm, could you rest that alongside your body? So your wrist might balance on your hip or your hand might dangle kind of beyond the pelvis a little bit, and take a moment to get to know yourself in this situation so you can make it a restful place for your arm. And could you start to move your shoulder, that ceiling side shoulder, this shoulder a little bit backward and then return it to where it came from? So light and easy and very smooth, many times bringing this shoulder a little backward, and then you return to its home. The shoulder is such an interesting intersection of so many parts of us. So as the shoulder goes backward, you can think of your shoulder blade coming a little bit closer to your spine, your shoulder blade moving over your ribs. And can you notice what your head, your sternum does? What does your chest do? Beautiful. Now, just coming to rest on your side, can you take both arms out in front of you? Extend both arms so that your palms stack. So if you are resting on your floor arm, you might need to slide a pillow or something underneath your head now. So you just place palm on top of palm. Feel the weight of the top hand resting on the bottom hand. And just very lightly, a few times, could you slide that top hand out into the world so that the palm comes off of the bottom palm, touches the floor. You're lengthening your arm in the direction that your fingers are pointing, right along the floor. And then just return palm to palm, reaching forward out into the world, onto your mat, onto your floor, and then coming back. And just see if you can make this movement lighter and smoother in service of your increasing comfort and pleasure in your own self. Could you just enjoy this reach into the world, make it really luxurious? Yeah, notice how you breathe with this. Feel where you could get a little softer as the shape of your torso changes, noticing that there is some shape change in the chest that's necessary for the arm to reach. The feeling of the ribs that are on the floor. Where can you really say yes to this little reach? Where can you allow the floor to support you as you move? Great. And now just come back to rest on your side and balance this arm along your side again. Your ceiling side arm. Could you balance it rested on your side? And could you move this shoulder back again a few times, feeling how you might have a different quality now as you take the shoulder a little bit backward? Are you rolling a little bit more backward? Just wonder, ask yourself if the quality of this movement of your shoulder backward has developed a little bit. Good. Taking this shoulder backward and then take this shoulder forward, backward and forward. Good. Stack your ceiling side hand onto your floor hand, palm on top of palm. And could you reach the ceiling side hand a little bit out into the world? And then, kind of like a snow angel, begin to sweep this hand in an arc, maybe about a quarter of an arc up the floor. Doesn't need to be, yeah, not off the floor. So your left hand, excuse me, your ceiling side hand, it may not be able to stay on the floor, but it's just kind of hovering on the floor. If you had a marker, a crayon in that hand, it's like you're trying to draw a quarter of a circle on the floor so that your arm would eventually come alongside your head, alongside your ear. And like I said, if your hand needs to hover or lift away from the floor, please do that for the comfort of your shoulder. And then just circle, go back along that quarter of an arc so that the top hand comes back to the bottom hand. So just exploring in that direction, breathing all the while, learning about the request. What does this arm ask of your whole self? Right? Where or how can your spine and your chest say yes or be in support of the movement of your arm? If you were to progress this arm and continue to arc it a little bit back behind you, you can go really slowly with that. So the arm might have to rotate, the palm may need to rotate. If you keep progressing that arm, sweeping more of a half circle overhead and behind you, how can your chest, your eyes, your head be in support of that? Not trying too hard, remembering this is all well within the range of your comfort. Beautiful. As you come back onto your side, could you let yourself come onto your back? Give this up for a moment. Watch yourself settle into the fullness of rest. Right? This practice of giving up an action. And again, that doesn't mean that we can turn the switch completely off I often use the image of a volume, the volume dial, or a dimmer switch. So you're just turning down the volume of the muscular contraction that was needed for those movements. Great. Roll to the same side, stack your legs, and you'll bring your ceiling side arm and rest it alongside your body. Now we're going to put together some of the movements of the legs and the movements in the shoulder and the arm. So start with your shoulder. Could you start to take your shoulder, that ceiling side shoulder, a little forward and a little backward? And you may want to just keep listening before you add on these different components. Really seeing if you can build the image of the movement, get very clear with the image of the movement before it gets too complicated. So when your shoulder is moving back, you're going to slide your top knee a little bit towards your chest. And when your shoulder slides forward, you're going to reach that top leg a little backward. I'll say that again. As your shoulder moves backward, your top knee comes a little towards your head. And as the shoulder moves forward, you swing that top leg a little bit backward. Yeah. And notice if suddenly, because we've coordinated a few actions, did the tone in your hand change, or do you feel kind of a different tone come about? Could you actually really let your hand just drape on your pelvis? Good. Noticing the coordination of your chest as your shoulder goes forward and back. Beautiful. Pause here on your side. Just take a little mini rest. And now stack your palms like we just had them. Both arms are out in front of you, palms are stacked. And as you slide your top palm a little bit forward, your top leg will swing a little backward. And then you're going to slide that top palm back to the bottom palm, maybe even up that bottom arm as your top knee swings a little towards your chest. So very similar to what we were doing, just the arms are in a slightly different shape now. As the shoulder moves forward, the leg swings back. As the shoulder moves back, the leg swings towards the chest. That's right. Great. Everyone pause on your side. So that's a variation you can stay with if the arcing of your arm, that half circle arc or that rainbow arc we made with the arm a moment ago, if that starts to be a challenge for you, you can come back to either of these first two variations. So we're going to start with our arms moving slowly, and then again, I will encourage you to add the coordination of the legs. So your palms are stacked. And that ceiling side hand, first reach it out into the world a little bit. Let it slide a little forward on your mat. And then begin to arc that hand along the floor until the arm is kind of alongside your ear, and begin to keep circling it a little back behind you. Maybe you make that full half circle arc of the arm, letting your head and your chest turn and follow. Yeah, so the arm isn't, again, it's not going up towards the ceiling. But you're thinking if you had maybe a long crayon in your hand, you could draw the arc on the floor. That's right. And you'll have to experiment. There's a moment in within this arc where your arm has to rotate, your palm will flip from facing the floor to facing the ceiling. Just feel when it organically does that. Great. And when the two palms meet each other, we're all going to pause there. We're going to meet up there. So the two palms, once you've reached that spot where the two palms meet each other, just pause. And now as you arc this arm back into that half circle, start to bring your top knee a little towards your chest so that as you open, you're open into that twist, your top leg has swung a little towards your chest. And when you reverse the arm, you're going to swing the top leg a little bit backward. So the arm comes up and then back to your floor palm, and the leg will swing backward. That's right. In other words, your shoulder is moving back. This is your ceiling side shoulder moves back as you swing the leg towards your chest. And then your shoulder moves forward as you swing the leg backward. Great. When you're ready, give all of this up. Come onto your back. And just watch yourself surrender the action into the vitality of rest, resting into the support of the floor. And actually watch, observe the process of your body giving up the effort and settling. Good. Bend your knees and stand your feet and roll to switch sides. And do what you need to for comfort on this side, right? Maybe there's a reason that you didn't prefer this side. So treat it really uniquely. Maybe you need more softness underneath your hips or shoulders, more support in some way. And from this home position on your side, first think that you'd like to draw your knees a little bit closer towards your chest. And feel what happens when you start to mobilize that. And there's no prize for beating the friction or doing any big movement, but rather could you attend to all the things that happen before your legs move, right? It's quite a massive reorganization inside of yourself. So you give yourself the time to study the preparation that goes into that action. And notice how you breathe when you think of pulling the knees towards the chest. Do you want to experiment with a breathing strategy? Can you allow your sternum to change, your chest to change, to be malleable in response to the pulling of the knees towards you? That's right. And every time after you've pulled the knees towards you, you come back to that neutral place and you see if you can feel an absence of all of the efforts. before you begin again. So there's almost a pulse to this. There's a dialing on of the gradual efforts that it would take to pull the knees up, and then a dialing down. So you feel yourself going in and out of preparation for action. Good. And then could you start to think of moving your legs a little backward, organizing for the opposite action of the legs. Imagine pushing your bent legs, keeping the knees bent, but moving them a little away from your chest so that the front of your hips open. And again, whether you are visibly moving the legs is somewhat irrelevant for our learning here. It might be that it feels really good. It's really pleasurable to slide your legs way back. That's great. I'm not inhibiting you from doing that either. But you may actually feel that a really small movement helps you sense how you start to organize everything else. Notice when the torso gets long in the front and when the torso gets a little shorter in the front. Great. And then pause somewhere in the middle so you're on your side. And could you think of just sending one leg back behind you, your top leg? Try that a couple of times. It's very different. Maybe going slow enough, small enough at the beginning so you can really keep giving the weight of that leg into the inside edge of the floor leg. And feeling where does the sending of the leg backward come from in you? Could you distribute that effort more widely? Is it possible that your chest, your shoulders, your neck can enjoy a participation, a responsiveness? Maybe even have a responsibility for sending that leg a little backward. Great. And then as you swing that leg backward, start to bring the knee towards your chest. And just a few times alternate. Once it goes a little backward, once it comes towards your chest. Good. Let that rest, just stacking the top leg on the bottom leg. And take a moment to fade out of action. If you were actually going to take a short nap here, would you shift yourself in any way? Good. Bring your ceiling side arm to rest on the side of the body. So the hand is just kind of dangling. And could you take this shoulder a little bit backwards and a little bit forwards? You can let that movement emerge out of the image, out of your curiosity. Let your neck, your head shift as needed. Yeah, it's just your shoulders moving forward and back. The legs are resting. Good. Extend both arms out, palm on top of palm, and feel how this is just a very similar movement of your shoulder. So you'll slide your palm a little bit forward and your shoulder will come forward, and then slide your palm back onto the floor palm and maybe up along your your floor forearm so that your shoulder goes a little backward. And so, in order to move the palm out into the world, you can really think of your shoulder coming forward, your shoulder moving backward, feeling the flexibility of the ribs. Yeah, when would you turn the head to look towards the floor, into the floor, and when? How do you turn the head to look more towards the ceiling? And then as your hand is sort of out into the world, as that palm has reached a little bit forward, could you start to explore this arc? You don't need to go the whole half circle right away. Just start to explore. Maybe you go an eighth of a circle. You sort of take the hand and arc it on the floor, a little bit upward on your mat, and bring it back down. And just each time progressing the movement a little bit, getting to know this shoulder. Your hand does not need to stay in contact with the floor. The hand can hover or lift as high as it may need to. If you need to just do this one in your imagination or stay with one of those first variations of the arm, just going back to those first variations. And also notice if there is a challenge that comes into the body. Maybe this shoulder doesn't have as much ease as the other one. Or maybe it's easier. But let's say there's a challenge that comes. Notice if suddenly there's more effort. Do you work harder? Does something tense? And listen for that. That's right. And as that arm continues to circle, maybe starting to move it a little bit back behind you, but each time you do the movement, you're listening for, oh, how was that? How did I coordinate that? Could that have been a little bit smoother? Oh, maybe I missed the timing there. Right? So you're adjusting your image, you're adjusting your intention. Each movement is unique. Good. As your arm starts to circle back down and the palm starts to reach the floor palm, could you swing your top leg backward? And as your arm begins that travel, that progress of arcing alongside the ear and back behind you, could you swing the top leg towards your chest? That's right. So as your palms are together, it means your leg is a little back behind you. And as your arm is behind you, your top leg has come a little towards your chest. How smoothly can you coordinate that without judgment? Nice, everyone. Come back onto your side and rest your ceiling side arm on your side. See if you can turn the volume dial down. Observe the letting go of the efforts. And let's just simplify a little bit what we just did. So, with the arm continuing to rest on the side, start to slide or move your shoulder a little backward as you take your top leg towards your chest. And then moving your shoulder forward as you swing the leg a little backward. Yeah, thinking less about your limbs and how you are organizing your torso for this. Your pelvis, your chest. Yeah, and can that ceiling side hand, can it be soft? Can you keep that arm really resting on you? So as the shoulder comes forward, the leg swings backward. And as the shoulder moves backward, the knee will come a little towards the chest. That's right. Always, you can always slow it down or pause if the coordination got confusing. Lovely. Okay, give this up. Make your way onto your back again. And just watch yourself begin to rest on your back. Listen for the process over time of what it means to come into rest. At the beginning of the lesson, we were checking out all of the relationships that you were noting with the floor. So, what's different now? What stands out? We also asked this question about the quality of rest. I wonder if, as you listen through yourself, for that quality, maybe you notice there's a little less busyness or buzzing. Where in yourself could you say that there's something that's a bit more rich about the rest? Something more restorative. And from this place of rest, could you imagine rolling to one side? Just that very, very beginning movement, that intention to organize yourself to one side and feel what that's like, moving from whatever is complete rest for you to just that beginning of action. And maybe there's a more whole image of yourself. Great. And now bend your knees and stand your feet. And just practicing this one more time. Don't act right away, but begin to think what you need to do to float your pelvis. How will you use yourself? How would you place your feet? What kind of adjustments do you want to make? So it's like you're anticipating the movement to lift your pelvis. You're really refining your listening. And then without any expectations, just go ahead and gradually engage the feet into the floor and see how do you shift or move? How do you lift your pelvis compared to the beginning? Then you place it down. And doing it a few times, really enjoying your breath clearly between each movement. And you give yourself enough time between each lifting to really know what you need to move to shift. So being very clear as you fade from rest to action, from action to rest. Yeah, you don't need to leave the pelvis up there. We're not trying to prove anything. You might feel that you lift your pelvis higher. It might feel lighter. Those are all wonderful things. It's nice to sense the differences. Great. And then when you've finished with that little exploration, roll to your side. Really take your time to eventually come to standing. As you come to stand and feeling the way that your bones, your skeleton supports you, just feel what it's like to be standing. Your small feet, your soles of your feet, figuring out how to support the weight above. Great. And then just take a few steps around your room, walk a little bit, and maybe you remember what the quality of walking was like at the beginning of the lesson. Great. Okay. Thanks, everyone. I'll end the lesson there. For these lessons, I always keep the meeting up for conversation. You are welcome to sign off and just stay with these sensations and curiosities about yourself. For anybody that has something to share or question, which could be about the lesson or about the series, I'll leave the meeting up for a little bit of conversation time. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Sarah. Appreciate
No
it.
problem. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right. Anybody have thoughts, questions? Maybe it's been a couple weeks since you've done a lesson, what it feels like to be back.
Thank you so much. I appreciate how you reveal us to ourselves.
And that's a lovely way of saying it. Although you revealed yourself to yourself.
With your guidance.
Yeah. Yeah, Jill.
Well, Sarah, it's fabulous to be back. I have really missed these classes. I've missed you and I've missed these classes. Um, without sort of going into the territory that we're going to explore for the next few weeks, can you just give us a couple of prompts or ideas around this zone to think about during the week, about this zone between letting go and or being in action and letting go? Just a couple of words or phrases that might help us explore it when we're thinking about it.
Yeah, so I'm not sure about phrases. Are you thinking like a phrase that you could say to yourself or that could help
Just an
prompt you?
idea.
Yeah.
Not necessarily a no, not sort of a saying. No,
Yeah,
just a couple of words that.
sure. So I think the heart of what we're working with is to quiet our system down enough that we can feel where in our body our tone is higher than it needs to be, right? Because our tissues can have a really high tone. Like if you take your hand and you make a fist and you squeeze it, that the tone of the tissues gets very high. And the muscles don't actually relax. The muscles, we have to inhibit the contraction of the muscles, is what's happening. Those are a lot of words. It's easier to just say relax the muscles, right? So you might hear me say that, but mechanically what's happening with your fibers is instead of having a high tone, which sometimes means they're contracting and getting shorter, but not necessarily, but there's effort there, there's energy, there's work there. And we're asking to let go of or inhibit that work. And oftentimes we are in a habitual state of contracting a specific area, which leads to a chronic shoulder tiredness or my neck hurts all the time, right? And it gets that way. And then we kind of live with it. We're used to that tone. So we're trying to become sensitive to those tones and feel, oh, when I lie on the floor, can I feel those areas that like really easily let go and just, it's so pleasant there. There's no problem. Like one arm just completely relaxes on the floor, the other arm, it doesn't. I can feel it's actually lifting, it's efforting a little bit away from the floor. Now, our process to let go of that work is complicated. It's not easy, right? So that's where the lessons come in. But certainly practicing little bits of that or bringing awareness of that into your day will be helpful. Like maybe you're doing a repetitive action and you're realizing, wow, I'm working really hard in my neck and I probably don't need to. Right. And so, okay, what if I just drop everything for a moment and see, can I dial down the tone? Can I take the volume dial and turn it down a little bit? And then could I start that action again? And could I keep the tone a little bit more quiet through my neck or wherever it might be so that you could kind of experiment with the idea, especially in those moments, those functional moments in life when maybe you're doing something, maybe you do something for work that's a little bit repetitive and, and then we get into habits that strain ourselves in ways that aren't very, very useful and healthy. Is that helpful?
That's really helpful. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, Michelle.
I just always love the invitation of doing less and slowing down. And I just feel like that this is such beautiful medicine for my nervous system. And like I came into the class feeling tired, and I sometimes when I'm really tired, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go to sleep. And I could feel that like I'm getting really relaxed. I'm going to do really far less. And I felt that impulse, and then I also felt like, wait, there's more space here for just that. And then I played with using less effort and exploring in a different way, and I found that that actually gave me an interesting amount of energy that felt much more vibrant and whole than sometimes I feel like I have to sometimes push in life. And I just feel like these lessons are such a beautiful metaphor for, obviously movement, but more than movement, it's how we live our lives. And just beautiful to come back to it again and again. And to be honest with you, it's my first class with you. I've done a lot of Feldenkrais for a long, long time over the years, and it's just delightful. I think you just have a really nice countenance and very invitational, and the curiosity, of course. So I just wanted to say thank you also. It's a beautiful class.
Thanks, Michelle. Yeah. Yeah, that's great. I'm glad you brought up that sometimes when we give ourselves that time to rest or slow down, do a little bit less, then it actually can spark some energy or some vitality. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.
Really nice to have you. Any other thoughts? Go ahead, Erin.
Yeah, beautiful, Michelle. Those great expressions of the work and your experience. Yeah, just lovely. I just wanted to commend you for your languaging throughout the whole thing, the introduction and throughout the whole thing. I mean, having worked with you for several years with this, it's just you just you just keep growing with being a teacher, and I so appreciated the lesson, and I love the um resting, yes, but what if you could take a nap right now? That almost added especially for an intro lesson, I think that added a great, yeah. That's that even I could think of more often, even though I tend to, wait in between, I could still think of that. And also I was remembering from earlier lessons with some movements like you did in this intro, to let the underneath side, the side on the floor, be letting go into the floor, but also helping initiate. So that was great.
Yeah, good. Thanks, Erin. I'm glad you explored that. Yeah, because I didn't talk about that at all. Beautiful. Great. Okay. Any other last thoughts? Otherwise, I've kept you all here for a while.
Mm.
Steve. Yeah.
Oh, hello. Yes, I just want to thank you. This is so gentle and kind and loving. And this seems like in our world, in society, there's so much um, rudeness. This is just so amazingly just gentle and loving and kind and and yeah, coming to the body and realizing, yeah, we have the body. We keep on thinking, oh, I want, I'm more than the body, but no, it's just welcoming this loving, gentle body and the movement that it has, and to like give it notice before it moves. It's like, really, we can like listen to that. It's just it's like so often we let the body with its conditioned reflexes and its ways that it just has been forced to just respond. It's like to slow way down and to love and to look at it from a different perspective. So thank you. Thanks very much. I I really am happy my friend David invited me to join you, and I'm so happy that he did and I did and you did and we all did. So
Great. Thanks, Steve. Thanks so much for sharing that. Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah, it's amazing what happens when we slow down and treat ourselves with kindness and think about moving ourselves around with the the sense that it can be pleasant or just what would feel pleasant for us. Yeah, it's a different paradigm. Yeah. All right. Thanks, everyone. I know I'll see some of you on Wednesday. I'll be teaching this lesson again on Wednesday. And anybody that has other questions about the series, you're welcome to email me. I'm happy to answer any questions. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.